about their process, about everything that went into both the recording and the writing of the book. So I highly recommend it. They're very consumable, bite-sized episodes, so really not a long commitment, but has a lot of information and fun stuff you may not have heard before packed in there. So this is the author, available wherever you find your podcast.
Making sure everyone can hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So very excited to talk to you about our reading challenge for 2020 to help your readers and patrons reach their reading goals throughout the year. We've designed our Read 20 and 20 reading challenge to be able to be consumed by readers of all stripes, from the occasional reader who wants to finish 20 books throughout the calendar year, or your voracious readers who want to read 20 books in a month. We've curated 12 different themed reading lists. And they help people dive deep into the subjects they love or branch out into new territories they wouldn't have explored yet, from fierce female reads to classic reads to diverse voices, books for foodies, and so much more. So please visit the URL on the screen to find out more and join our Facebook group to talk about what you're reading and encourage your patrons to read too. And just a reminder that we are active more than ever on social media these days. We're posting about virtual author events, all of our resources, so please do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and visit our blog for additional book recommendations and resources. And I'll just say a plug for the next slide is that we have a lot of digital resources available on Issue. So as you are reaching out and planning your own virtual events, you can find lots of materials like book club kits or discussion questions, excerpt samplers, and a whole lot more. So please join us and browse on issue.com/PRH Library to find lots of great materials that you can use in your e-newsletters and online for your patrons too. And if you'd like to find even more resources, as Jen Rubens was talking about before, you can visit the URL. We have a whole blog post with a roundup of all of our resources available to you. Again, we'll send out the PowerPoint and all this information at the end. So please do visit that. And just a reminder also that we have a great tool for books in Spanish language. So the URL is on the bottom of the screen. Again, we'll send that out later, but you can find great resources for your Spanish-speaking patrons.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so surprised. It's not about quiz. This is such a hard class you guys are taking. Okay, Elizabeth, what are you reading or listening to right now?
Right now, I am listening to Colin Jost, who is the co-host of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. He is coming out with a memoir that just moved a little later into the summer and fall called A Very Punchable Face. He is such a funny guy. He's talking about his childhood in the book right now, and it's making me feel better about my rough and tumble little boys. So I really recommend it if you can get your hands on it. It's fantastic.
And he reads the audiobook too.
Oh, good.
I mean, who else could read it? So that'll be fun too. You can hear a clip at booksontaped.com. Okay, now on with the books. You've been waiting.
Okay, so we know that a lot of people, we've talk in our meetings every week, and I was saying how I think every person I've ever met in my life now has asked me what book they should be reading, because, you know, one perk, if you have to look at some of the benefits of this happening, is that people do have a little bit more time for themselves. They have more downtime. People have had time to pick up a book for the first time in years. So we know that everybody is automatically gravitating towards certain titles. And we know that your holds lists are out of control for certain titles. So we thought we would help you a little bit. Where the Crawdads Sing, we're pretty sure is probably one of the top 3 books that anybody's asking to read, just because it's been in the zeitgeist lately. And we thought we would give you books that are, that are pretty similar to Crawdads in the sense that the sense of place is a huge part of the book. So we're not going to go crazy into the plots of these books, but we just wanted to make sure you knew about them. Big Door Prize is the New York Times bestselling author of My Sunshine Away returns with another instant Southern classic, and it's a gripping and heartfelt novel about a mysterious machine that upends a small Louisiana town, asking us all to wonder if who we truly are is who we truly could be. This is a great book. We've met him at PLA, and it sparkles with keen observations about what it might mean to stay true to oneself while honoring the bonds of marriage, friendship, and community, and how the glimmer of possibility can pull these bonds apart, bring them back together, and make second chances possible, even under the strangest circumstances. The Marsh King's Daughter is a little bit darker, and you know that Crawdads has both. It has the lovely part of it, and it also has the dark part of it. And this was praised by Karen Slaughter and Meg Abbott. The Marsh King's Daughter is the mesmerizing tale of a woman who must risk everything to hunt down the dangerous man who shaped her past and threatens to steal her future, her father. So again, there's a lot to be said about, in Crawdads, you didn't know who to trust in the family, and this is the same, and it's a little darker. It's set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, so that in the marshlands, so there's that angle as well. Idaho was a Los Angeles Times bestseller, a stunning debut novel about love and forgiveness, about the violence of memory, and this is one that is that takes place on the rugged landscape in northern Idaho, where this family is bound together by more than love. Anne and Wade have this life together, but they're bound together by more than just their love. They have their husband's memory is fading, but Anne attempts to piece together the truth of what happened to Wade's first wife, Jenny, and to their daughters. It's a very shocking book. It's very sad, but it's also very heartening at the same time. And again, you are alone with this family on this terrain in Idaho, and you can see where the atmosphere really does make or break a person sometimes. I actually loved this book, and I hope that people will go to it if Crawdads is on hold, because I thought it was fantastic. Where the Dead Sit Talking is the 2018 National Book Award one of the finalists for fiction. It's set in rural Oklahoma during the late 1980s. It's a stunning and lyrical Native American coming-of-age story, again, about a single mother. With a single mother in jail, Sequoia, a 15-year-old Cherokee boy, is placed in foster care with the Trout family. He's literally and figuratively scarred by his mother's years of substance abuse. And he meets a 17-year-old Rosemary, a troubled artist, and it's about their story as they share this Native American history, and the background is them being in this area together, and it's a wonderful, wonderful tale. Also, we are lucky enough to have the Spanish language edition of Where the Crawdads Sing for your audiences that need that. And there's Swamplandia, which is the Pulitzer Prize finalist. And I don't know if a lot of you remember, but she was also one of the Carnegie finalists as well. Swamplandia takes place in the marshlands of the Florida Everglades. It's about a family that owns a gator-themed wrestling park. This book, to me, was the book I thought about the most after reading Crawdads. I loved Swamplandia. It's about this family that is just kind of on their own, reeling from the mother's death. There's a lot of such a sense of place in this book. I kind of felt like the characters in both of these books should have been friends, and then they all would have been fine. So I think that Swamplandia might be the first one I would go to. But there's a great selection of titles for people that are looking for what to read while they're desperately waiting to read Crawdads if they haven't already.
And before we move on to another slide, I have two things I want to add. One, I see some questions about what the formats stand for. So I just want to run down really quickly and let you know HC is hardcover, ebook is self-explanatory, AD is audio download, LP is large print, CD is compact disc, and TR is trade paperback. So hopefully that answers a lot of your questions, and that's great to know that you need to know that information. So we'll be sure to put that on the next presentation. And then just speaking of AD and CD, audio download and compact disc, I just wanted to add in for some of these, I think the audio experience too is just for books with a sense of place is just extraordinary. So I think also at this time, patrons who may not have been open to trying an audio format before any of these books would be a wonderful pick to get them started on that experience. I know Crawdads probably has a high hold in all formats, but the audio book has won an Earphones an Earphones Award from Audiophile Magazine, and they talk about how it's just so enchanting and haunting, and I think that can be said for a lot of these titles. I also specifically remember when Idaho came out talking about that poetry-like, lyrical prose. And so that on audio too is just beautiful to listen to. And this is fun. Swamplandia actually has 2 readers. So you really get these 2 different perspectives of the characters. And Booklist also recommended that for advanced YA listeners. So that's also a great one to keep in mind when recommending that for younger listeners and readers who are excited about the Crawdads popularity.
Okay, next up, page to screen titles. Besides, while people are quarantined, besides snacking and reading books, I feel like we are constantly hearing about their watch list.
I don't know what you're talking about. I watch no television.
Right, whether it's Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever you're liking, or regular TV, there's a lot of streaming and TV watching going on. So, of course, we know, as book people, the book is always better than the movie. So we've compiled a list of some of the biggest page-to-screen titles for you to share. Obviously, Celeste Ng's Little Fires Everywhere is now a Hulu original, starring Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. It's getting tons of press. It's a riveting novel that traces the intertwined fates of the picture-perfect Richardson family and the enigmatic mother and daughter who upend their lives. With all the excitement the series is brewing, I'm sure it's safe to say there's a long holds list for this title. You don't have to do much selling of this. So we put together some other books to go with what your patrons are screaming. Not screaming. They might be screaming, but screaming. First up, we have the New York Times bestselling love story, All the Bright Places. It's about 2 teens who find each other while standing on the edge. This is now a Netflix film starring Elle Fanning and Justice Smith. About the book, a Publishers Weekly starred review said, in her YA debut, author Jennifer Niven creates a romance so fresh and funny. The journey to, through, and past tragedy is romantic, heartbreaking, as characters and readers confront darkness, joy, and the possibilities and limits of love in the face of mental illness. This is a good book to recommend both to adult readers and your young adult readers as well. Defending Jacob, the Associated Press likened this a legal thriller that is comparable to Scott Turow's Presumed Innocent. I think that says it all. Tragic and shocking. This is soon to be an original streaming series. Also, our book cover is a little invisible here. That's The Invisible Man. I think the graphic department did a little too good a job with the title. But here, readers can rediscover H.G. Wells' classic novel and inspiration for the terrifying new film starring Emmy Award winner Elizabeth Moss from The Handmaid's Tale. The film,
she said everything that scares me way too much.
Yeah.
The film The Invisible Man from Blumhouse Productions and Universal Pictures is a chilling modern tale of obsession about a woman who escapes a violent, controlling relationship with a wealthy, brilliant scientist. But when the man commits suicide, she begins to suspect that his death was a hoax and that she's now being haunted by someone who no one can see. The date for the motion picture release of The Secret Garden, which is starring Colin Firth and some other people, has been moved, unfortunately, till August. But fans can get a jump by reading the classic novel now. I'm sure you have copies on audio download and ebook. Also, The Letter for the King has a new Netflix series. Publishers Weekly said about the book that it conjures up elements of Tolkien and the Arthurian mythos. The rich language, lush descriptions, and sense of wonder allow it to hold against its own in any competitor. This is great for readers young and old alike. Also, for your Spanish readers, we now have the Spanish language edition of Stephen King's follow-up to The Shining, Dr. Sueño. And of course, there are too many page-to-screen titles to present, so we have one more slide, and we'll just flash some other great page-to-screen books. You'll find all the pertinent ISBNs in the Excel grid when we share this after the presentation.
Can we go back to the previous slide?
Somebody just said that The Secret Garden was starring Colin Firth and some other people. That's exactly how we feel too.
Yes.
I just have to add, well, first of all, I'm finally listening to Little Fires Everywhere in audio. I know I'm so late to this party, but I wanted to finish the book or the audiobook before I watched the show. But Jennifer Lim does such an extraordinary job narrating. She's so mysterious, and I'm really enjoying it. All the Bright Places, this always reminds me, so I finished this audiobook while I was sitting waiting in the holding room at jury duty, waiting to see if I was going to be called. And I just have this memory of sitting there crying, and everybody's probably thought I was like trying to get out of jury duty by seeming like emotionally unstable or something, because I'm sitting there like weeping while I'm listening to All the Bright Places. But it has Kirby Hayborn as one of the narrators, and Ariadne Myers is the other, so I highly recommend remembering that version as well, that format. And also The Secret Garden, Finola Hughes, who you might know from General Hospital, reads the audiobook.
Oh, Anna.
Fabulous. I mean, she can do all of the beautiful British accents. It's funny because I just read the Golden Books version of The Secret Garden for Brightly, which is going to be a flipped along book coming up on their YouTube channel. And I had like Finola Hughes in my head, and I'm like, do not even try, because this is not going to happen. But it's beautiful. And I think classics on audio is a great way to like re-experience them or revisit them, or if it's been on your to-do list for a long time, it's just a great way to brush up. So I had to let you know about that. And then on the next slide, just a shout out for Daisy Jones and the Six. If you have not tried that audiobook, it's so cool because it's like a music documentary, and it has a full cast, including Jennifer Beals, Flashdance, and it's just incredible. So I highly recommend the audio version of that as well. It's just really unique and fun.
It is great. All right. Resilience and strength. So we wanted to give you some books that people are looking for people to look up to and have a little bit of, people, this is a rough time. And, a lot of us have this, one of the first times that we've had to really focus on what our strengths are. And we're looking for people that will inspire us a little bit. And we're looking for leaders that are strong. And so these are books that we think that will be for your fans that are looking for The Splendid and the Vile. We know Erik Larson is always popular, and we don't really need to tell your patrons about him, but Splendid and the Vile is the New York Times bestseller, from the New York Times bestseller of The Devil in the White City, and it's a fresh and compelling portrait of Winston Churchill and the London Blitz, and London during the Blitz. And Vanity Fair says Churchill's lessons of resilience and his style of steady-handed leadership are essential to the state of mind of American readers. And we cannot agree more, especially at this time. We know that people will be looking for books like this.
Someone just said my mom is in love with Erik Larson in our comments.
I know. I think I might be too, actually. So here's some other books for you. And as librarians, nothing makes us as a library marketing department, and we know as librarians to go into some of our great backlists. And so anytime we have an opportunity to do that, it makes us happy anyway. So we've got some great books for you here from our new and from backlist. And Churchill, this was from Dominic Sandbrook from the Sunday Times. He called this undoubtedly the best single volume life of Churchill ever written. So that is hard to beat as a review. This book, during the Second World War, Churchill summoned a particular scientist to see him several times for technical advice. It was the same whenever we met, wrote the young man. I had a feeling of being recharged by a source of living power. Harry Hopkins, President Roosevelt's emissary, wrote, wherever he was, there was a battlefront. Field Marshal Sir Alan Brooke, Churchill's essential partner in strategy and most severe critic in private, wrote in his diary, I thank God I was given such an opportunity of working alongside such a man and of having my eyes open to the fact that occasionally such supermen exist on this earth. And that's why we picked this book for you. We think this will be inspiring to your readers looking for somebody to, we know that some people are not huge Churchill fans. He's definitely an inspiring character, no matter what, no matter how you put it. This is Chance. This is a thrilling book about a community shattered by disaster and the extraordinary women who helped put it back together. Elizabeth Gilbert calls it an intimate, moving story about our capacity to care for one another when things fall apart, and just maybe on all the ordinary days too, which I think is what's happening now. And this takes place in the spring of 1964 in Anchorage, Alaska. At the time, it was a modern-day frontier town yearning to be a metropolis. And this takes place, what happened was just before sundown on Good Friday, the community was jolted by the most powerful earthquake in American history, a catastrophic 9.2 on the Richter scale. And for 4.5 minutes, the ground lurched and rolled. Streets cracked open wide, swallowed buildings whole. And once the shaking stopped, night fell and Anchorage went dark. The city was in disarray and sealed off from the outside world. This book draws on thousands of pages of unpublished documents, interviews with survivors, and original broadcast recordings. This Chance is the hopeful, gorgeously written story of a single catastrophic weekend and proof that our collective strength matters in a turbulent world. So I can't think of a better book to read right now. Oh, I could cry just saying that. Imperfect Union, right? Oh. Sorry. Imperfect Union. Steve Inskeep tells the riveting story of John and Jessie Fremont, the husband and wife team who in the 1800s were instrumental in the westward expansion of the United States and thus became the first great American political couple. This is about their time on the frontier with rare detail. It tells the story of a couple whose joint ambitions and talents went on to change the way of the American landscape, going and settling the West and all the struggles that they went through, and it defined us as a country and gave rise to a new, more global America. It navigates the deeply transformative years of their relationship while doing this, and they settled the Western frontier. So some of us, you can't even imagine the struggles they must have gone through. So we can handle, waiting online for toilet paper, I would imagine. So sometimes you just need a reminder that people have been through hard things. So D-Day Girls is the dramatic, untold history of the heroic women recruited by Britain's elite spy agency who helped pave the way for the Allied victory in World War II. Eric Larson gave this a great review, said, gripping, spies, romance, Gestapo thugs, blown-up trains, courage, and treachery, lots of treachery, and all of it's true. This is one of those great books for people that like to read narrative nonfiction that reads like fiction. This is a wonderful story about these very inspiring women. Franklin and Winston. This is the most complete portrait ever drawn of the complex emotional connection between two of history's towering leaders. This is a great backlist from John Meacham. Meacham's news sources, including unpublished letters from FDR's Great Secret Love, Lucy Mercer Rutherford, the papers of Pamela Churchill Harriman, and the interviews with the few surviving people who were in FDR and Churchill's joint company, shed fresh light on the characters as they struggled with, through the course of the struggle that they had during their administrations and during their time in power. Hitler brought them together. Later in the war, they drifted apart, but even in the autumn of their alliance, the pull of affection was always there. This charts the personal drama behind the discussions of strategy and stagecraft, and it's Meacham at his finest, and he wrote a definitive account of the most remarkable friendship of the modern age. And lastly, we wanted to give you a book for your Spanish language audience. This is from Where We Come. This is about a poet who got exiled from Cuba for writing what was considered anti-state poetry. And he gets exiled and he returns to Cuba 37 years later as a seasoned journalist. And it's the story of what he went through and going back and how he feels about his country from both aspects. Of a wonderful book as well.
And just to add in before we move on, those are such incredible titles. We just had Eric Larson as a guest at the audio supper at PLA, and this audiobook, he actually reads his author's note on it for the first time. So that's really special. And I always think in my 10 years in audiobooks and marketing, I have I have this wonderful memory of this letter that came in from a woman who said that Erik Larson's audiobooks literally saved her husband's life. He was losing his vision and he couldn't read, and his entire backlist on audio was what he turned to, and they had these incredible book discussions with each other because of the availability of Erik's backlist on audio. And I'm so excited. I don't know these people personally, but I was excited when he had a new book coming out. I thought, oh, that'll be good to add to their list because it was just such a beautiful letter. And also another audio tidbit. Steve Inskeep obviously is a co-host of NPR's Morning Edition, so who else could read the audiobook? I mean, he hosts like the most widely heard radio program in the United States. So that's another format to make sure fans of his keep an ear out for.
So just as people are looking for strength and resilience, they're also looking for inspiration. They're looking for comfort, compassion, and courage. And we think this collection of books will provide readers a lot of what they are looking for. Glennon Doyle is definitely topping bestseller lists these days and holds lists with her newest memoir called Untamed. Many of you probably know her from her best-selling Love Warrior and Carry On Warrior, but this new memoir is her most powerful yet. She explores what we discover when we stop listening to the expectations of the world and we start listening to our inner voices. Oh, and she also talks about her meeting and falling in love with her wife, soccer star Abby Wambach, so there's a love story in there too. But she touches on so many themes. She touches on trusting yourself, setting boundaries, making peace with your body, honoring our anger and heartbreak, and unleashing our truest selves. And I think a lot of these other books touch on a lot of those same themes as well. So if your readers can't get Glennon's new book, you can certainly recommend some other things to lead them into those places of comfort and compassion and courage. So the first I'll talk about is one of my favorites, Brene Brown. She's obviously another powerhouse author who's all over the media these days. She's on 60 Minutes, and her new podcast, which she just launched, is #1 from the get-go. She's amazing. And her book, Rising Strong, offers powerful messages about leading a brave life, being vulnerable, but owning our stories, and that helping us to become a little bit more courageous. Another one of my absolute favorites is Kelly Corrigan, and if any of you follow her on socials, right now she's doing Facebook Live events, and she's just so approachable and relatable and fantastic, and she's sharing her thoughts and reading poems and telling jokes. And her book, Tell Me More, is all about connecting to. It's about trying to name all those phrases that make love and connection possible between people. So I highly recommend that book for you and all of your patrons as well. From the best-selling author of When Things Fall Apart is Welcoming the Unwelcome. I can't think of a more apt book for this time. It's an open-hearted call for human connection and compassion and learning to love the world even in the most challenging times. It includes teachings on recognizing the basic goodness of people around us, even if those people are challenging, and transforming adversity into opportunity. So another wonderful book to recommend. And for a lighter but certainly inspiring note is today's show beloved co-host Hoda Kotb. She has I Really Need This Today. And it's a collection of inspiring quotes drawn from her personal favorites on her Instagram, again offering wisdom and courage and hope to so many people. And who better to offer a path to calm than Deepak Chopra? In MetaHuman, he unlocks the secrets of moving beyond our present limitations, liberating ourselves from old conditioning and the constructs that underlie anxiety, attention, and ego-driven demands. And finally is 7 Lessons from Heaven, which is available both in English and Spanish editions. This is Dr. Mary McNeil's account. She is an orthopedic surgeon who had a near-death experience in 1999 during a kayak accident. And it talks about what happened next, and she's riveted millions of readers already. Here she shares more about that inspirational near-death experience and the role of God and his profound love for us. And she includes practical and spiritual lessons to help us begin living without worry, anxiety, and fear.
And it's no surprise in the audio corner that this is, sorry, some background interruption.
We said he'd make an appearance.
They were supposed to be out for a walk, but surprise. So these are all read by the author. Brene Brown reads her own audiobook, Glennon Doyle, Kelly Corrigan, Hoda Kotb, Deepak Chopra. These are such incredible ways to really invite them into your home libraries, into your personal, private walks that you're taking, into just whatever your patrons are looking for. To really have that voice speak to you of these really wonderful people is just such a gift, I think. And I think Hoda's title just says it all. I really needed this today. When I listened to her read her quotes, it's just exactly what I needed today. I was so jealous. My coworker got to go to the studio when she was recording, and she said she was as lovely as you would expect. So this is another reason to follow our social media as well, because we'll share some behind the scenes things when we have it. We have a wonderful video with Glennon Doyle, so keep an eye and an ear out for that. And remember to offer all formats of these fantastic inspirational books.
Okay, next up, literary fiction. Emily St. John Mandel's new novel, The Glass Hotel, has just released. Sure to be a popular read at your libraries. This exhilarating novel is set at the glittering intersection of two seemingly disparate events, a massive Ponzi scheme collapse and a mysterious disappearance of a woman on a ship at sea. Now, fans of Station 11 were long awaiting this, and I'm sure people would think, can she do it again? Michael Schaub of NPR said, "The Glass Hotel is a masterpiece just as good, if not better, than its predecessor. It's a stunning look at how people react to disasters, both small and large, and the temptation that some have to give up when faced with tragedy." Obviously, this is going to have a long hold list at your library because it just came out. Sadly, Emily's tour is obviously not happening in person, but she's been really committed to doing a lot of online events. But for those patrons who love literary fiction, we have some other options that you can offer to them while they're waiting for Emily's book. Of course, we have Mbolo Mbue's compulsively readable debut novel, Behold the Dreamers. This also centers around a financial event. It's about marriage, about immigration, class, race, and the trapdoors of the American dream. It's the unforgettable story of a young Cameroonian couple who are making a life in New York City just as the Great Recession upends the economy. This was, of course, an Oprah Book Club selection, a great literary fiction to offer your patrons. Also, The Vanishing Half. This is new from Britt Bennett. She's the New York Times bestselling author of The Mothers. The Vanishing Half is a stunning new novel about twin sisters. They were inseparable as children, but they ultimately choose to live in two very different worlds. One chooses to live as a black woman, one as a white. They're half and half. And what happens, when these two worlds collide. This is scheduled to publish in June, and the e-galley of The Vanishing Half is still available for those of you who would like to preview it. Also, we have the debut novel, The Immortals of Tehran. This is a sweeping multi-generational debut. It tells the story of a centuries-old curse carrying one family to the brink of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. This is perfect for readers who loved Exit West. Long Bright River. In Long Bright River, two sisters travel the same streets, though their lives couldn't be more different. Then one of them goes missing. The New York Times Book Review said, Moore's careful balance of the hard-bitten with the heartfelt is what elevates Long Bright River from entertaining page-turner to a book that makes you want to call someone you love. Greenwood, for fans of Barbara Kingsolver, David Mitchell, and Colin McCann. Greenwood's a dazzling, immersive generational saga that charts a family's rise and fall, its secrets and inherited crimes, and conflicted relationship with the source of its fortune, trees. And then we also have the winner of the Andrew Carnegie Award for Excellence in Fiction, Valerie Luiselli's Lost Children Archive, or Desierto Sonoro. That's my poor Spanish accent. It's available in both English language and Spanish language. This novel, according to the Washington Post, is an epic road trip that also captures the unruly intimacies of marriage and parenthood. This is a novel that daylights our common humanity and challenges us to reconcile our differences.
And I think weighing in with some audio stuff, I mean, it's no surprise that some of these literary fiction masterpieces are read by some of the best narrators out there. Just beautiful storytelling. I still remember when the audiobook producer of Behold the Dreamers fell in love with this book and talked about the casting process, and it's read by Prentice Onyemi, who is praised. I'm just reading this review. He really makes the two different cultural worlds depicted in the novel vivid and fully believable because of his way with accents. Audiophile gave him a glowing review. I'm really excited about The Immortals of Tehran on audio. It's read by Peter Ganem. And just another fun listener's advisory tip, for example, Peter Ganem is also one of the readers on Codename Helene by Ariel Lawhon. So that could be a fun additional sort of tip to help guide your patrons who are high hold lists are frustrating sometimes, especially during times like these, to make that connection with something unexpected and say, hey, Peter reads on this book too. You might want to check that out. And Kimberly Farr reads Greenwood, which I don't know if you're familiar with her. She reads a ton of audiobooks, and she's just fabulous. And I highly recommend listening to that one too.
Right. Long Bright River was my first quarantine read, and it was
really,
yeah, it was really good.
Did you ever think you'd say that sentence?
I know, really. My first quarantine. Okay, so some people are reading to forget about what's happening in the news, but a surprising number of readers want their art to imitate life. There are plenty of readers who can't get enough of quarantine books to read in quarantine. So we've been seeing many reading lists. The Great Influenza, is topping bestseller lists right now. And we have no shortage of additional books to offer to your readers who are looking for pandemic-related books. First up, with kind of eerie timing, Chris Bajalian has just published his thriller, The Red Lotus. The book reporter said, the Red Lotus has Bajalian's characteristic suspense and turn-the-page pacing. It's a cautionary bio-horror tale a la the Andromeda Strain and The Hot Zone. Definitely striking a chord right now with readers. Also coming next month, the eGalley is still up if you want to preview it, is The End of October by Lawrence Wright, which Richard Preston, author of The Hot Zone, calls a compelling read up to the last sentence. Then he goes on to say, Wright has come up with a story worthy of Michael Crichton. In an eerily calm, matter-of-fact way and backed by meticulous research, he imagines what the world would actually be like in the grip of a devastating new virus. You can't get more tied into world events than that.
Oh my gosh.
In The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker, an ordinary town is transformed by the mysterious illness that triggers perpetual sleep. This is from the best-selling author of The Age of Miracles. It was a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice and also named one of the best books of the year by Glamour, Real Simple, and Good Housekeeping.
Elizabeth did say to me the other day, I feel like we're living in a Karen Thompson Walker novel.
Yeah.
I know.
And I still remember when you talked about The Dreamers. After you read this book, Elizabeth, you told everyone about it.
And The Age of Miracles too. I mean, really, her backlist. If you're going into the deep, go with her. Sorry, Jen.
Rob Hart's The Warehouse. We've obviously there's been a lot of attention focused on Amazon during these times. According to Sci-Fi Wire, The Warehouse is engaging. It's part modern consumerism cautionary tale, part near-future dystopian nightmare. Its message just might make you think twice when dealing with today's omnipotent online retailers. Also, we have Richard Preston's Crisis in the Red Zone. This certainly strikes close to home. This New York Times bestseller was called An Urgent Wake-Up Call about the future of emerging viruses and a gripping account of the doctors and scientists fighting to protect us, told through the story of the deadly 2013-14 Ebola epidemic. And then finally, don't forget that we have available both in an English language and Spanish language edition, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's classic Love in the Time of Cholera. And I couldn't fit it on the slide, but of course, Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11 is another great
right.
offering.
And just to add from an audio standpoint, like there's something I think almost ironic. Some of the readers of these books have such calming voices. There's something very satisfying about having a very calm, peaceful narrator lead you through some of these tales. For example, The Red Lotus is read by one of my favorites, Rebecca Lohman. The Dreamers is read by Cassandra Campbell. Any audiobook listeners will be familiar with those names. And so if there's any fear of like, can I go into these pandemic style books, I think the audio could be an easy way to ease yourself in because you have a lovely guide to take you on the journey.
And escape it all. So for those who are not leaning in, who are not watching Contagion, who are not reading about pandemics, we have a whole bunch of books that can get people as far from the news cycle as possible. The Jet Setters by Amanda Eyre Ward was a recent Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick. It's a journey through panoramic settings in Europe, and it's just plain fun. Ellen Hildebrand put it best. She said, "It's a dysfunctional family that goes away together on a Mediterranean cruise. What is not to love?" And readers will find the same sense of beautiful setting, bringing families back together, poignant moments, uncovering secrets, and uplifting journeys in these other books as well. So for those who don't want to leave the Mediterranean, there's The Vacationers by Emma Straub. It's about the secrets, joys, and jealousies that rise when an American family has a 2-week stay in Majorca. And for those looking for a little love is Beach Read, about a romance writer and a literary writer who are both suffering from writer's block and renting beach houses next to each other. Then they engage in a summer-long challenge that may change everything that they both think about happily ever afters. For those who like unearthing secrets, but in a little more sinister way, is The Girls' Weekend. For fans of Ruth Ware and Lucy Foley, it's a riveting locked room mystery about 5 college friends who reunite after years apart, but then they're ripped together again when their host disappears and grudges and deep secrets are unearthed. For those looking for warmth and charm and a poignant portrait of unfinished relationships is The Book of Dreams from the best-selling author of The Little Paris Bookshop and The Little French Bistro. It's a human story that examines the very serious parts of life alongside with light and whimsy. And then for those readers looking for strong female characters, It's not all downhill. It's not all downhill from here. From the best-selling author of How Stella Got Her Groove Back. So our main character, Loretta Curry's world is turned upside down, but her loyal group of friends rallies around her and helps her figure out what she's going to do with the rest of her life. And last but certainly not least is The Invisible Mountain in both English and Spanish language editions. This is a sweeping family story that brings to life the history of Uruguay and also examines the fierce connections between 3 generations of mothers and daughters. So please don't miss those if you do not want to watch the news.
So I don't want to escape it all. I just want to add in Terry. Yeah, I'm going to wear these guys. Yes. I can hear the groans from around.
Love it.
I was just listening to Terry McMillan in the studio. She recorded her own audiobook and she's a riot. So whatever format you listen or read this book in, I highly recommend it. But she's so funny. She did an episode of This Is the Author for Us, the podcast I mentioned earlier. It hasn't been released yet, but I was listening to the raw files of it. And she made a comment just how like she doesn't write books to depress anybody, least of all herself. So she, while this does deal with some important, poignant, heavy topics about, aging, and she said that she's lost a lot of people in her life, she also is not looking to depress anyone, and she does all the different character voices and has a lot of fun. And she said that recording the audiobook was really empowering. So I'm really excited to hear that. And then Nina George, I love on audio. The Book of Dreams has 3 narrators on it, including Steve West, who is a narrator on The Little Paris Bookshop. He has such a charming voice. Like the swoon that we all gave when you mentioned Colin Firth, like I feel like in audiobook world, like Steve West's voice gives a swoon every time. So I highly recommend if I had to choose. Oh, wait. I'm so surprised. Guys, there's another pop quiz. Okay. Kelly, you are not going to escape this unscathed. It's your turn.
All right.
Oh, and Kelly's an audio fan, and this really was random. I swear, you just saw it. This was not planned. Who would you want to narrate your life story on audio?
Oh, geez. Let's see. Whoever the narrator was for A Gentleman in Moscow.
Oh, Nicholas Guy Smith.
Yeah, unless it's Colin Firth and he's sitting next to me reading it to me.
Okay. I'm sure we could arrange that. That would be a really good webinar. Maybe next week we could have Kelly and Colin Firth.
Yeah. If anybody out there can make that happen, let us know.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, and just a reminder that if you want more read-alike suggestions and you want to talk more book talk, join us tomorrow at noon Eastern for Ask a Librarian. It's a Twitter conversation where you, the expert librarians, can give and receive book recommendations and read-alikes and help recommend to patrons as well. So please join us.
I've already seen during this webinar so many people have written in their own read-alikes to ours, which is so incredible. So thank you for doing that. It's going to be really fun to read through the comments. I also just want to add on, so we have our hashtag PRHMorningBuzz. I have props with me all the time now that I'm working at home. I keep getting, groans from the group. I'm like, hey, I have a dinosaur today. I have sunglasses. I would love to see, I think all of us working from home are surrounded by things that we need to make us happy, whether they're books or found items that you didn't realize you had. So in addition to the books that you want to share with us or the audiobooks, if you also want to share a snapshot of your at-home library or workspace with what's making you happy right now, please tweet it or share it on social with us with the hashtag PRHMorningBuzz. We would love to see, and maybe we'll share some of them next week on our next Book Buzz, so you can tune in to see if one of your snapshots will be featured. So show us what's making you happy.
This was fun. Thank you, everybody. It's very it cheered me up to talk about books with all of you. So thank you all so much for staying with us for so long. It was really fun.
Thank you. And we did have a bunch of questions about whether the webinar was archived. We did, in fact, record it. We'll be sending out a follow-up that will include the Excel grids with all the ISBNs. It will include a link to the archived webinar so you can share with your colleagues if they weren't able to see or watch parts again. But we will be providing all of this to you in an email follow-up. And thank you for giving us a reason to put real clothes on today. Once a week we're going to...
Who knows what kind of pants?
No. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
You will. Thank you so much.
Bye. Happy reading and listening.
Bye. Happy reading.